Well, I'm excited for another episode of the Dream Lifestyle Podcast. And if you're new here, our mission is simple. We want to help you become the leader that your dream requires. And in today's conversation, I have my new friend, David Reed. And I just want to take a moment and just kind of list off some of the things. This guy is the real deal. He's a father, he's a husband, most importantly. But outside of that, on the professional side of things, he is the founder of Pendulum Sales Training. He has done just some of the major stats. He's led teams for over a decade, so he's not new to leadership. And within those teams, because again, it's one thing to be in position, it's another thing to have receipts, where those sales teams have pretty much done over 60 million in sales. He himself personally has done over 10 million in sales, and I'm certain the list is even longer, but I'm really excited for the insight and wisdom that he's going to be sharing with us today concerning confidence. And so with that all being said, David, thank you so much for being on the pod today.
Of course, man. Happy to jump on and talk, share some stories, and hopefully pass along some wisdom to help somebody else on their journey.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I appreciate, we share a passion for sales, and so I'm excited to hear those stories because I know that they'll be helpful. So I want to start our conversation with this question of just when did you start building your dream lifestyle? Like, where did all that you're doing, where did it start that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, so funny enough, it started on Craigslist. I replied to an ad on Craigslist. I got interviewed for a job. I was the first sales hire at the company. So it was me, one other person, and the CEO. I started that in 2011. I stayed there until 2020. I built it up I left as the vice president of sales. We had about 150 employees. I had 16 sales reps, and we were doing about $17 million a year in annual revenue. So that's kind of where I got my big start. I learned a ton of lessons along the way. And my goal now is to help impart a lot of that wisdom so I can help sales professionals earn, a couple $100,000 a year, which is now, you used to think about it a few years ago, 100 grand would like meant a whole lot. Now really 250 is kind of like the starting point for where you want to be. And I think it's a big adjustment, and a lot of people don't really realize how much things have shifted and how much we need to earn as men and professionals and leaders of our home.
1,000%. And I think what I appreciate is that you basically help unlock the door for a lot of people to reach that benchmark. Because you're right, 250 now is like the starting, whereas you were up, 10, 15 years ago, if you were above 200. So one of the things that obviously you being a sales professional, a sales executive and things of that nature, we know that confidence is a huge part of sales, right? There's no way you would do the numbers, have the success that you've had without having a measure of confidence. And and that's where we're really leaning into today. How would you, in your experience, like you said, you go from, hey, I replied to an ad on Craigslist to where now you're founding your own sales trade. Where does confidence come? How would you define confidence?
Yeah. So one thing that I would say is like, I certainly wasn't always this way. Right. And I think my confidence comes from the actual results of what I've done over my career. So I was back in the day when I was younger, man, if I had to get in front of a stage and talk to people, or even just like in my little Bible study, man, I was traumatized. I had to read the Bible. It was probably like sixth grade, and I'm a little dyslexic, so I would sometimes read the words wrong, and some kid roasted me, and I'm bawling in the bathroom, man. I was like so embarrassed because I just didn't sound very good. And so one of the things that I've really focused on over my career is, man, when I go into a situation, when I go into a meeting, when I prepared for this podcast, I watched probably 30 of your videos, right? I went on your website, I'm doing the research. And so the confidence comes from the knowledge and the information that I have personally taken the time to develop, read, analyze, so that I know those things going into a situation. Now, one thing that I want to add to that, though, is that when you're getting started, it's like, how do you develop that confidence? And the trick that I always teach sales professionals and entrepreneurs is it all comes from the questions that you ask. So in my previous role, I was a VP of sales. I had 16 sales reps, and I worked with a bunch of different partners. And so one of my partners was a shingle manufacturer, and I knew how much a square of shingles, which is like really technical. That's how they measure, how much how much a shingle, square foot is essentially. I knew how much the price was in Birmingham, Alabama versus Texas versus New Jersey, not because I'd ever installed shingles, but because I asked questions to the people that I was engaging with. And so the more questions you have, the more knowledge base you build up. That I then bring that into my next conversation. So when I'm talking with somebody else from Texas, and like, oh yeah, so you sell a square of shingles for XYZ, right? And he's like, yeah, how do you know that? It's like, all right, now I have the confidence. Now I'm positioning myself as the expert.
That's so good. I think so. A couple of things I want to pull out. It sounds like confidence for you, you said it came from results, but you got the results because you were readily prepared, like in actually doing the research. So you didn't just leave your confidence up to chance. Now, you also said that a part of that preparation, it helped you build knowledge base. You talked about, how you would basically do research on, hey, square footage of a shingle, how much does it cost? How much does it cost in Texas? How much does it cost in Florida? Right? Like actually doing the research. What stops people from doing that kind of work? Because one of the things, David, that I know is that there are a lot of us who can unintentionally leave our confidence up to chance, as opposed to actually doing the work to improve it and develop it and things like that, building our knowledge base. What do you see in your experience have been like obstacles to people actually building confidence?
Yeah. I think people, frankly have a lot of ego involved. Like I see that very, very often. Like they assume that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm routinely training proficient salespeople and they're closing a couple $1 million. Like, I don't need any help from you. And I'm like, brother, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, they all had coaches. You're telling me that you're better than them? And so I think there's an element, a little bit of an ego where we don't ask questions because we assume that we know everything. I'm working with a software company right now. It's a good friend of mine. I've known him for 10 or 15 years. And when I watch how they engage with their customers, they just show up and throw up. And so one of the things that we did is I stopped them and I said, all right, guys, I want you to ask the customer 20 minutes worth of questions. Now, I gave them some advice on this. And immediately they were like, David, I don't know about this. Like, this seems like overkill. And so when we started going through some training, we started reading some books, and lo and behold, this sales rep who his best year ever was $90,000. Brother, if you do not make 165 this year, I will be severely disappointed. And he was like, there's no way. It's not even possible for me to earn that much money. And I said, I'm telling you for a fact. And like 2 weeks later, he comes back. I said, hey, so how do you feel about this? He's like, man, my conversations, they're like infinitely better. I know everything that's going on with this business. And I have way more knowledge going into that conversation. And I said, all right, how do you feel about your ability to make over 100? He's like 100%. And I said, can I give you some like rough news for you? I said, you've been in this company for 12 years. You've left $1 million on the table in income in that time period. And he's like, I know, it's so frustrating, man. I'm thinking back about all these deals that I lost and conversations that I lost. And it's so obvious.
Man, that's so good. I think what that speaks to is, one, if we want to gain confidence, we should all find a mentor, find a coach, right? And put down that ego and things like that. What I'd love to hear from you is walk us through your personal experience with that. So you are now the one that really gives people confidence, because I do believe any good coach not only gives speed, but also gives confidence. How did you develop your confidence in a way that we can really again, just hear it?
I don't think it's advice that everybody's going to want, but my old CEO was ruthless. So he was an AOL executive, he's a good friend of mine. I learned so much from him, really took my career to a whole different level. And so I sat outside his office for probably like 3 or 4 years. I don't like using extreme words like every time and 100% and all the time, but 90% of the time I made a phone call, he corrected me afterwards. Don't say it this way, do it this way. Don't say it this way, do it this way. Don't do this, do this. David, don't do this, do this. You're at a show, David, don't sit at the same table with everybody else. Sit at a new table with somebody else. And he gave me all these really great lessons that I hated in the moment. Like, one of the things that has stuck with me that I tell people all the time is he would say, David, you're not understanding the psychological nuances of the words that I'm telling you. And I'd be like, listen, old man, get out of here. Like, I don't need to hear this nonsense. But now I look back at it and I was like, man, he was right about all these little things. And so now I try and tell people this and I'm like, look, I understand this is irritating, but just trust me. This is why we do things this way. And so really it just honestly came from a lot of correction
So
during that
good.
time period. And what really elevated me was until when I first started this job, I was 25, and 25 to 27, I had done like sales jobs before that. I'd sold retail and other things, but 25 to 27, I sold strictly persistence and passion. Like I would just follow up with people relentlessly. And then 27, I really got on this kick of like reading. I wasn't a big reader at all prior to that, but I was like, hey, look, if this is going to be my career, I want to master this. And so then I started reading 1 to 2 books every single week, every single month. And I probably read, I don't know, 50 to 70 over the span of like a year and a half. And it really gave me so much more knowledge of the strategy behind sales as opposed to me just kind of showing up and winging it.
Man, listen, you said some things that I want to make sure we hit on. Number one, correction helped you with your confidence, right? And of course, we don't like correction in the moment, but we all have that looking back. You're like, man, I wish I had listened more. I wish I had applied this earlier because they were totally right. But then also, if I'm understanding you properly, from that correction, it developed this desire for mastery. And I think that is like a missing link for a lot of people. Because, at least one of the things that I find with people is like, I shouldn't have to convince you to build your dream. Like if you communicate that you want to do something great with your life, and then when it's time to do the work and you're aware of the steps, why does it feel like I have more energy towards the thing than you do? And this is for you, right?
I partner with a company, and this was like early on, like God bless me. I left my job in November 19th of last year, and December 19th was my birthday. I had 6 clients by my birthday. So I was already making over 5 figures in retainers, like within the first month, which is amazing because I literally quit a multi 6-figure job and had nothing, like no savings, like depleted everything. It wasn't a great year for me last year. And, I'll share with you, like I had 3 incredible stories of signs that I had from God, like just like bone chilling stories.
Ahead. I love
Crazy.
it.
And so I left that. And one of the clients, I actually just parted ways with them last month because I'm supposed to be coaching a team of 6. And like 2 guys would show up. And I'm like, guys, like, why am I the one that's pushing to like help you get better and help you make more money? At the end of the day, like you've got a goal. And if you truly don't think that I can provide value and that I'm going to give you a different perspective, then like, it's not worth it for me to keep doing this. Cause I don't like, it's part of my brand and my reputation at that point.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important that like, if you're going to coach, man, like you need to show up, you need to be attentive to what your coach is saying because they have a different perspective. We've all got blinders on. We can only see so much. And when your coach is outside and they're able to see something else, it's like, hey, dude, try it this way. Shocker, that actually worked. Of course, because we got a different perspective.
Absolutely. And perspective really changes everything, right? And perspective comes with experience, perspective comes with reps and everything that we've been talking about. And, it just speaks to how we have to be okay with humbling ourselves, where it's like, hey, I do know some things. Like, hey, I'm, because we're high performers, we're high capacity, all the things, but I still have to be okay with receiving feedback, still be okay with receiving when somebody says, hey, there's a better way, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about impact. Like that's what we're here to do. Now,
exactly.
One of the things that you mentioned in your journey to building confidence was you mentioned reading books. And I want to bring this up because there are a lot of people, and I'm sure you've heard this, where they'll say, I'm not a book person. I don't read books.
All my clients, they say that, every single one, and I'm turning them into readers. I can tell you that right now.
Walk me through that. Talk to us about the power of books and how that connects to your own personal confidence.
So here's what I'd say. It's like, when you think about this, a lot of people in this country have gone to college and they've spent 20, $40,000, $100,000 on an education that probably impacts their career minimally, versus I can take someone that has most likely built a company or gone through some sort of process or gone through some sort of system, and I can distill the lessons that they learned over a 5 or a 10-year period, and I can take those away. That shortens the gap of me figuring out all of those problems. And so there's a handful of different books that as a leader, before I hired anybody, I would make them read them. Now, as I'm coaching clients, every month we've got a different book that we're reading, and we're going to read 3 or 4 chapters, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to say, all right, what were your big takeaways from this book? What are the things that we're going to want to implement from this? And helping them reinforce the training and other stuff that we're doing together.
I love it. Can you give us some book suggestions that would really help in the lane of whether it be leadership, confidence, whatever? Just what books have even helped you?
Sure. So on the leadership side of things, one that kind of connects to one of your topics is Atomic Habits, where you've talked a little bit about like goal stacking, and you're talking about prioritizing your goals. And he goes through a bunch of different scenarios in here of, you've all probably heard the concept of like getting 1% better each day and gets you 360%. So they give a lot of really concrete examples in here. They talk about the British cycling team who hadn't won World Cycling Championship for, I don't know, 50, 60 years. And what the new coach did is he focused on all the minor details. He wouldn't let the team shake hands with other team members because they might get sick. He had them paint the interior of the cabin that they housed the bikes in all white so they could spot any dust that might be on the bikes. I mean, the guy just went to like such extreme lengths, which sounds extreme, but then they go on to win something like 17 or 18 championships in a row. And they win something like 50 and 60 medals over the next like 12 years, I think it was. And so it just highlights how like those small details, they make a massive, massive difference. So this would be one on habits that I would recommend. If I was going to go sales, which is obviously my forte, there are 3. Well, I'm going to give 3 books on sales, and I'm going to give you 1 book on marketing. All right. So Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is a great book.
Love that book.
Really great. They talk about concepts like mirroring and how you identify personas. That's a really good one. Gap Selling is by Keenan. This is a phenomenal book on helping to understand why your customers aren't interested and why they're not buying. And it's because it's about establishing the gap in your conversation. Challenger Sale is was done by Gartner Research. They analyzed over 10,000 sales reps, and they identified what are the characteristics and what are the traits that are the consistent among high performers. And they came through with a couple of different factors, one of them being someone that doesn't need to be liked, someone that is comfortable teaching, educating, coaching, and giving a different perspective, aka challenging the customer. Last one, marketing. If you haven't read this book, it's phenomenal. It's massive. It is thick. But this is Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. In this, he talks about concepts like the law of reciprocity. So as an example, when I, as a coach, am reaching out to people, I am always focused on what am I giving to the prospect? What resources, what value am I engaging with them? Am I calling them to say, hey, are you ready to buy? Or am I calling to say, hey, by the way, I found this new thing. I think it's really cool for you. Go ahead and check it out. Oh, by the way, where are we in our conversation? Right?
So good. Yeah. So good. I appreciate that because again, I like how practical it is. Like those are real books, real valuable books. I actually read Never Split the Difference, and just between mirroring and all the tactics that it gives, like use them to this day. Like they're amazing. So it's no surprise that you are where you are. Now, what I think is interesting in your story, just kind of tying back something you mentioned earlier, that with the success you had in corporate sales space to where now you are in a major pivot transition into now entrepreneurship, you needed a measure of confidence to do that. Now, you also mentioned that you had some signs from God. What I want to do is really just give you the floor to just talk with us through that transition, not so much in the pivot itself, but just the confidence, the confirmation you got from God concerning the pivot and everything like that. Because all of this is relevant when we think about us as dreamers and leaders, like being confident, walking in confidence, where we can make those kind of major moves.
So I'll share with this. So 2024, best financial year that I had had. Incredible. I took this company, a friend's company I was working for, from a little over $2 million to $5 million. I had 9 sales reps. We're doing $700,000 a month. Like, amazing, doing great, loving life. 2024, 2025, everything pivots. Change the comp plan, change a bunch of things that I didn't have control over. Company goes from 9 sales reps to 1 sales rep. Worst financial year that I had in 10 years of leading teams. And so I was really struggling, honestly, since February. And everyone that I had always talked to has always said, David, you're going to be a CEO. David, you're going to be a leader. David, you're going to be a pastor. Like the previous church, I'm like, no, that's not my calling. But I've always had people say stuff like that. And I'm just like, all right. And so I was debating about when I was going to leave. And so all these big changes happened in February of 2025. And February till August, I'm like in my mind, like, all right, I got to leave soon. Like, I can't keep doing this. Like, this is this massive roller coaster all the time. Like, I need to step out on my own. And so my wife and I, we had been going to a church, just for transparency. I think it makes the story a little bit funnier. All black church, 5-hour church services. I'm literally the only white guy there. It's quite an experience for me. I grew up like in a very like country club, hour, 15 minutes, you're in and out, like,
Yep.
And going from that to a 5-hour, hour of prayer, 2 hours of speaking, another hour and a half of prayer, then you're helping break down. And I had gotten to the point where I was just kind of frustrated with the messaging and the language. And my wife and I, we were there for about 5 years. And we actually went down to, do you know Pastor Madhu, Social Dallas?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So we actually went down to Dallas for a work trip, and we went to his church because my wife loves him. I've enjoyed a lot of his content, and we were sitting in there just like in tears in the service. We're like, man, this is how we're supposed to feel when we go to church. And so that kind of sparked us as like, all right, babe, like we got to get out of here and we need to find a new church home. So that's what led us to TLC. And when we went into TLC, which is our new church, TLC DMV, they got a few locations. And when we went there, we got into a life group or Bible study group. Didn't really quite vibe with everybody in the group. So we like went for one and then we just basically just didn't come back. And, church is a decent size at our location. It's like between 500 and 800 people at our location. The guy that is leading that group sees me coming out of church a couple weeks later. By the way, I'd never seen this guy before, but now all of a sudden I'm seeing him like every week. I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, hey, David, can I talk to you for a second? He's like, I had a vision about you. And I was like, okay. And he says, yeah, I had this vision that you and Amber, that's my wife, you and Amber are in the desert and there's a river in between you. And Amber's on one side and you're on the other side. And you're looking at the water to time when you should go across. And all I have been thinking about since February is like, when do I leave this job and go off and do my own thing? And my wife has been saying it for years. You got to go out and do your own thing. And I was like, wow, I literally had maybe a 20-minute conversation with this guy. And for you to have that level of insight, like you can only say it's a sign from God.
1,000%.
Right? So that already, like I'm tearing up there just hearing the message as I was going through it. Then 2 weeks later, so what do I do with that information? Of course, I sit on it. I do nothing. I just say, all right, I'll just keep waiting. 2 weeks later, we have a church-wide fast. And in the church-wide fast, it was a morning kind of prayer call. And they said, God has called you to something, and it's messy, and it doesn't look right, and you got to step out on faith. And a minute later, I don't recall the Bible verse, she references there's a river rushing through and you need to go across the river. And I'm like, wow, okay, like God's really trying to like get my attention here. So of course I still do nothing with that. And then I waited. Now it's October, and something happened between me and the leadership team. And I said, hey brother, appreciate you, man. Like I can't keep doing this. I gotta go out and do my own thing. That's at 10 o'clock on Wednesday or Thursday, 10 o'clock. I go upstairs. I tell my wife, I say, hey, babe, we got to make some changes. I just quit. I don't know when stuff's going to be coming in. We'll have a little bit here, but like we got to make some adjustments. And at 10:30, I got a text message from an old coworker of mine, and it said, David, I just want you to know that you are a true leader. You're an expert in your field. You need to keep building. It will bear fruit in due season.
Wow.
I hadn't spoken to that person in over a year.
Wow.
Out of the blue text message. And I called him later on in the day, and I said, hey, like, did you talk to the CEO? Because they knew each other. I said, did you like talk to them? And she said, no, I got a message from God that I needed to send this message right now. She said, I was on the highway driving, talking with my husband when I got this, that I needed to send this message to you.
Wait a minute. That's so they had no idea of just like what was going on from February, your frustration, contemplation, everything, and just sent you that text message
out of the blue.
Oh my God, bro. That's
less than 30 minutes after I just quit.
That is so cool. Like, I can imagine the moment is kind of like, okay, God, you get my attention for real. But I'm sure, like, looking back at it, I'm certain that in itself produces a level of confidence, because you're like, okay, I'm where God wants me to be.
The only thing I think of is like, all right, I just kept hearing like obedience, right? Is like, clearly God is calling me in this direction, and I've been ignoring him for a long time, and it's time for me to go down this path.
Oh my gosh. That's really good, man. Thank you for sharing those stories and those signs. So we had the one sign where the pastor, who you didn't really have like a deep relationship with, who just kind of just said like, hey, had a vision about you, and it was completely accurate to your life. Second sign was during the church-wide fast. It was basically spoken, there's a river, you got to take the leap. And then just the random text from a former coworker, and just so talk with me about when you actually made the move then. So all these signs, okay.
Yeah.
You have the conversation, you tell your wife, hey, things are shifting, we're going to make the move. How did you stay confident through? And obviously, like, I'm not even going to say you're still in it, because you're doing great, but just walk us through how you maintain confidence.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like it is tough, right? Like it's tough when you're out here and you're going from like, hey, I was earning multiple six figures to literally nothing. And it's definitely a challenge. And especially like when you're in like a coaching role, right? And you're in a leadership role, man, people do not understand how hard it is. Like thinking about the pastor role, how much time it takes to prep, to deliver a 45-minute sermon every single week, and it's new content, and it's valuable, and it's different, and it like that is insane. And so like one, we're all going to have those moments of self-doubt as you go through this, right? And so I think what really helped me was just like understanding God. Having my wife is incredibly supportive of me, through this process, and probably honestly a bigger cheerleader than I am at times. And also having some brothers that are there besides. So I have a few other friends that are growing companies, and we're all around the same age, going through the kind of the same thing. And that definitely helps to know that like, I'm not alone. I'm not here by myself. I'm going through these situations. But ultimately what like gives me the most confidence is just staying active, right? Like continuing to do the work. I think a lot of times we especially as younger, newer entrepreneurs, you get in this mindset of like, man, I gotta do all these things. I gotta make everything perfect. And I gotta do all this other sort of stuff to like make it so it's perfect when this customer comes along. But we don't actually take the time to talk to the potential customers. And it's crazy how like you don't need to cold call 1,000 people a day. You just need to be sending messages to your friend, right? Like yesterday night, I'm sitting there, my daughter's got a recital, and I sent 5 DMs to people. I said, hey, by the way, who do you know who might need some help with training? 2 people responded. Guys sent over information. Hey, this person wants to talk. This person wants to talk. Boom. Like that's all. And now I feel infinitely better because I'm making that traction. I'm making that progress. Really, it's just about keeping your foot on the gas pedal, especially in an early journey like this.
That's so good. I think, one of the things that you're bringing up that I'm thinking of is that we can have like this false confidence because we're busy when really it's avoidance. So to your point, when we're entrepreneurs, right, we're just getting started off, we want to do 1,000 things. So it makes us feel good, right? Because again, when you're starting off, you the marketer, you the sales professional, you the CEO, you the admin, you're all the things. And so you feel like, yeah, I'm running the company and all things. And then meanwhile, you have 0 clients, like no one.
Exactly.
And instead of doing what you're probably afraid of doing, of actually, let me reach out to my closest people. Hey, what do you think about this offer? Hey, does this make sense to you? Hey, like, and actually having those more strategic conversations. Cause like you know, I have a group of people that before I really roll anything out, hey, look over this. Would you buy this? Like, this makes complete sense to me. Like, what's unclear? Like, because one, for me, like, that's something that I have to maintain confidence with, right? Especially when you're in entrepreneurship or really leadership in general, when you have to like pioneer something. Cause we in our mind, every idea that we have is good. Every offer we put together is good.
Of course.
Everything.
Of course.
Right? And so it does require a level of confidence to really submit that to somebody else and be okay if they say, no, your favorite part that you thought was going to do it, that ain't it. It's actually this over here, right? And so it's hearing that. And so what I appreciate about your answer, just kind of pulling some things out from what you said, it was you had a great understanding of God. I think that's very key, because when we're talking about confidence, particularly for those of us that are believers, kingdom-minded, all the things, we're not talking about like willpower. We're not talking about ice baths every morning at 4:30 in the morning and all the things. Like, that's a physiological thing and that has its place. But in general, it's, hey, I understand God and he confirms where I need to be. I can have confidence in that. But then you talked about your support system. I think that's really key. So for you, you have your wife. And for you, you also have your brothers. What would you say to a leader or dreamer who doesn't currently have that kind of support system? What would you say to that leader?
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, and it's going to be tough without it, right? It's tough to go this journey without that person by your side that's there to help tell you, hey, brother, it's okay. Like, you're going through this. Like, my friend, he just told me yesterday he missed out on a Q1 bonus. It was like 10 grand. I said, man, dude, like, that sucks. I hear you. That's just part of the journey, dude. Like, I just lost $5,000 a month worth of clients, right? The other within a span of like 10 days, it's like 60 grand. So like, just know this is all part of the journey. This is part of the process. It's okay. And sometimes just knowing that, like, it's okay that I'm getting my teeth kicked in here today. Like, that's okay. That kind of relieves that stress that, like, this is normal. This is part of the journey. And do you know Alex and Layla Hormozi? Do you follow their content?
Absolutely. Man, listen, you can't be an entrepreneur in 2026 and not hear of Alex and Layla Hormozi.
You know what's surprising though? I talked to a lot of contractors, and I did a sprint of cold calling one time, and I said, hey, by the way, like, do you know who these people are? The overwhelming majority had absolutely no idea who they were. So like, I think it's also like a little bit of the circles that we all fall in. But the reason why I say that, so I went to one of their workshops out in Vegas a couple of years ago. And one of the things that was really interesting, so I asked this question. Layla had like a kind of a lunchroom where you could kind of ask some questions and stuff like that. And so I said, hey, Layla, so I've got this report that I want my team to fill out on a regular basis, and they're not quite filling it out. And like, it's kind of like hot or cold. And her response was, cool, well, how often are you looking at it? And I said, well, I don't always get to look at it every week. Like, sometimes things get busy, but I want to make sure that they're doing it. And she said, can I give you the bad news? And sure, okay. She says, you have to look at it. You have to block off the time. You have to spend the time going through this to actually, make sure that your team really value it. And so I think it's a good concept, and it's a good message of like, hey, this is part of the process. This is normal, but we're going to have to do some hard, uncomfortable things. And so sometimes just having that person in the background that can kind of voice that to you and just be like, hey, dude, this is normal. Like, there's do you know, what's his name? He's a guy who hangs out with Andrew Tate, Jordan Waller, something like that.
Yeah. Whereas like the suits, the high collars.
Yeah, exactly. He's a steel. He built steel buildings, and he was having a down day. He was going through something, and he talked to his mentor, and he's like, I think I got to pack it in, man. Like, I think I'm done. And the guy was like, man, if you're not thinking you're going bankrupt every year, that means you're not doing nothing anyway. He didn't say that. He said a more aggressive version of that. But,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
but
tracking.
like that's part of the message, man, that encourages us. Okay, this is normal. This is part of the process, you know?
Oh, that's so good. I appreciate that because it's almost like kind of overview of our conversation. You become more confident when you are more aware of the reality of things. Kind of going back to you for you, right? You define confidence really as like, hey, I see the results. I have confidence in the results and I'm preparing well and all the things. And so for you, it's like, hey, the more I recognize this is a part of the process, and because I know this is a part of the process, the season, the trend, whatever the case is, hey, I know how to properly navigate it. So, David, what I want to ask you is with all the success you've had, all the results you've seen, the achievements and everything, and like you said, every year, hey, it feels like I'm going for broke. It feels like, man, I'm trying to make it happen. It feels like, back's against the wall and I'm fighting every day. You have your confidence. That's clear. Talk with us about what does it cost to be you? Because from the outside looking in, someone might not know all that, hey, man, every single day I'm out here hustling, trying to get it. Like, yes, I live a great life. Yes, all things. But I'm out here, what does it cost to be David Reed, the founder of Pendulum Sales Training?
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of discipline for one, right? Like I'm working, I'm a morning workout person, which once you have kids and a business, morning workouts are the only option. There's no evening workouts. I got a buddy of mine who's in church, and he's good friends. We serve on the same team. He's got football Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He runs a men's group on Tuesday. He's in our couples group on Thursday. There's no time, right? And so, like, if I'm gonna work out and I want to be in shape, which is what I want, at the end of the day, like, health is number one priority. If I'm not healthy, nothing else really matters, right? And so I've got to get up and I got to work out. It means I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? To make it to the gym by 6 so I can be done by 7 so I can drop off my daughter at school, right? And then I can take my shower, get my day started. And so I can be prepared and run my conversations. I think the big thing for me is like, it's all about the preparation, professionalism, preparation, passion, discipline. Like those are the core values for me. So when I got started, is one of the other lessons I learned from my CEO is like, you have to dress a certain way. People are going to perceive you based on how you appear and how you present yourself. So if I'm going to sell somebody something that costs $50,000, I'm not showing up in a hoodie and sweatpants. It's just not going to get the job done, right? I'm going to show up in a suit. I'm going to look good because that is going to command that level of respect. And so I think the preparation is going to be the big thing for me is I go into a meeting, when I'm meeting with my team members, I'm spending 2 hours to prepare for a 1-hour meeting. And so when I go into that meeting, I am that much more prepared. I'm that much more on top of things. And I'm providing that much value to that business owner. Right now, everyone that I see is like, how can I extract as much from people with as little effort from people as possible? I'm going the opposite way. I'm like, dude, how can I do 5 times for 1/5 the price? Because I know that is what's going to get people to be like, man, David is freaking awesome. What he does, like, you got to work with him. And that's the reputation that you build and how you build that company and how you build that structure. And it takes a lot of time, right? Like I'm in here, I'm grinding from 8:30 till 5:36. I spend 5:30 to like 8 with family and my daughter and my wife. And then 8 to 11 o'clock every night, I'm working again more. I'm preparing for the next day for me to get after it. And that's just what I believe is necessary in order to win in today's market.
And that's so true. So discipline, it costs discipline to be you, especially with a schedule like that. Because I'm on a very similar schedule where it's like, man, gym early in the morning, doing the father thing from 7 to till whenever, but still just making it happen, right? Building systems and everything. I want you to say this again. You mentioned your core values. Can you say those again? Because those are really good.
Yeah.
I want to make sure people don't miss those.
So preparation, professionalism, passion, persistence, and discipline.
That's so good. That's good. And again, I want people to understand why I wanted you to say them again, because those become guiding principles. Those are like,
Yeah.
hey, when you think about your day-to-day decisions, like you're making them through that lens. David, as we wrap up here, is there anything?
One thing I want to highlight for everybody, because I was
Yes.
kind of anti-core values for a long time. I read the book Traction, one of the many books I've read. I'm sure you probably read it as well. It's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so one of the things I really want to encourage for everybody is when you think about these principles, what are the principles that you want everyone that you're going to be working with, your customers, your clients, to be living with? If I have a sales rep that can't show up for a 9 o'clock huddle, I am frustrated, I am angry, and I am annoyed by that. And that is not conducive for me to grow my company. We're rowing the boat at different speeds. That's okay. He wants to be a night owl. That's cool. Go find another night owl company to work for. It's just not me. And it's not the company and the culture and the system that I want. I'll share this one last story and then we can wrap. So when I first started working for my friend's company, this was my most recent company, I went to an event and they had probably like 7 people at this event. And again, we're selling consulting services anywhere from like $20,000 to like $50,000 a year. So decent size, not crazy, but decent size for a small business, like somebody that's doing like a couple $1 million a year in revenue. We had multiple people there with joggers on and sneakers and people eating at the trade show booth and very disconnected. And I was so furious walking into it. Like, I was so agitated. After the trade show, I went home and I wrote up an SOP of like, this is how we're going to interact at a trade show. We're not going to be eating food at a booth. That is crazy. We're not going to be on our phones. We're not going to be sitting down. We're not going to wear joggers. We're not going to wear baseball hats. We're not going to wear hoodies. We're going to dress professionally. And like, I think it's so important to drive those points home because we don't often think about it. But if I'm spending energy getting them back to the level that I want them to be at, I'm working overtime unnecessarily. And I just want to find people that align with that standard.
So true. So true. And I think that word of alignment, right? Like you're talking about the relationship of employer and employee, but the same is true with customer and your business. The same is true with, a member of your church and you as a leader within your church. Like those relationships matter, right? That we all know the phrase birds of a feather flock together, right? It's that. It's pretty much that on display where I recognize, hey, let me get clear on the things that matter to me, the things that help me be my best. And that should attract those that are like-minded. It should attract those that recognize, okay, I need to show up sharp. I need to dress sharp. I need to speak sharp, professional, all the things that align with your core values. And what that helps you with is it helps you find those people by really having those core values down for yourself. So I love that, bro. Thank you. Now, let me ask you this, just free space.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you feel is necessary for us to share when we think about this idea of confidence?
Okay. I do have something for this. So I've been focused a lot on AI over the last couple of years. And one of the things that I think is really, really important, especially as you're new and you're developing, is collecting data. Like that, we are in a data collection, era right now. And the more data you have, the more information you can play with and the more that you can accelerate. So I actually partner with a company that they record calls for sales reps and they give them insights on how they did and what they're doing really well with. And I just got pulled into a call with the CEO of that company earlier this morning. And I spent about an hour walking them through what I had done for another company. And it's taking their sales data and now how do we pull out those insights to then use that for marketing? So I'll give you guys a quick example. One of my clients is a business acquisition company. So they're a training coaching company for business acquisition. Similar to like Cody Sanchez, if you're familiar with who she is, competitor of theirs. And so one of the things I did is I took about 50 of their sales calls and I analyzed them. And I was able to uncover in their funnel, I assume most people are probably familiar with what a funnel is, but
Indeed.
They had an application funnel. In their application funnel, they had a financial qualification. I know this is super technical for those people, so apologies. But for those, this is going to be like, holy, this is, whatever. Sorry.
Good.
All right. So in their financial qualification, they had 0 to 25,000. They had 25 to 50. They had 50 to 100, and they had 100 plus. I analyzed 50 calls. What I found is that 99% of their customers were investing more than 50,000, and over 80% were investing more than 100,000. So my messaging 0 to 25 gone. That's not who we're targeting. Honestly, 25 to 50, only one person had signed up that was in that range. So what we did is we changed the messaging. So we have 0 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 250, and 250, 500, and 500 plus. So now I'm automatically signaling I'm talking to people that have $100,000 to $200,000 to invest in a business. Very different from how they had their messaging before. Other thing that we did is that they had a bunch of different messaging that they were targeting. So they were targeting W-2, they were targeting owners, they were targeting real estate, CPAs, and a couple others. And what we found is that over 85% were trying to escape a W-2. And so now we're immediately changing that messaging in our headline copy of like, they had 12 calls that people referenced that. 7 of those people bought. I'm like, all right, we definitely need to start leaning into that, right?
Absolutely.
And then we also asked an age question. And so they were generating a significant number of leads that were below 40 years old. However, somebody that's under 40 probably doesn't have $100,000 to invest. So they'd only sold one person that was under 40. Between 40 and 60 was 88% of their customers. So again, another massive insight. And so the thing that I really want to stress for you guys is like recording your conversations. Even if it's just a voice note, Fathom, whatever it is that you might be doing, you need to save that data. It is an absolute gold mine for you in terms of improving your marketing and your messaging.
That's so good. And that is so good. Listen, because I understand all those terms, so I nerd out over that stuff, and I love it. Because there are so many tools available to us today that really help you lock in on who you're targeting. Now, again, I recognize that we have some church leaders listening. We have some professional career, but at the end of the day, there's still tools available for you to simply become more efficient. Because that's really what you're speaking to, where it's like, hey, there are things you can do, the right kind of work, so that you can have a greater confidence when you execute. Because even while, it's one thing if you have to like guess at, well, I've had, I closed 5 calls, I called 20 people, closed 5 of them. Those 5 that, okay, these are the things that I thought of versus, to your point, I have a whole transcript where the machine just analyzes certain responses, pulls out key things. Now that helps me change the marketing. And so there's a relationship between all these things, right? And the tools that we can use. So thank you for sharing that.
I think one thing along those lines is, part of what has led companies like TLC and or churches like TLC to grow at the rate that they have is like they are following a lot of business principles and they're following a business network. And I do think that the churches that continue to follow that are going to see growth. They're going to see consistency. And I think the churches that don't are going to have a really hard time. One of the things that really stood out to me is when we were getting our daughter, not baptized, but we were getting her dedicated. I asked, hey, what time are we going to go up on stage? They said 10:42, not 10:45, not 10:40, 10:40. That's how detailed they were with everything that they do. And I think that level of professionalism, you think about what attracting a like customer, not sounds kind of horrible,
no,
like
but just
thinking about church as like a customer.
That kind of person. Yeah, but that kind of person, yeah.
But you're as you are growing, right? If you're thinking about who is the person that we want to be able to service and who's the person that's like who we are, you want to attract somebody that has that similar kind of standard and expectations. I think it's just really important. I would strongly recommend for any of the church leaders that are on here, like, we absolutely need to be investing in some sort of coaching and support and learning from others. So we're not tripping for 5 years trying to figure this thing out on our own versus following a blueprint that somebody else has already developed.
I love it. I love it. Well, David, as we wrap up, can you just tell the people how they can connect with you, where they can find you, and everything like that?
Yeah. So my website is pendulumpros.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well, just david.reed. And Instagram is @_dreed86_.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, man, thank you so much for your time. And if you're listening to this or watching this podcast, I only have one favor to ask of you, and that is to simply share it with one other person to be a blessing to them. We appreciate you for investing in yourself during this time. Always remember, your dream is possible as long as you're willing to grow for it. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.